Everybody, welcome to the CT Sports Talent Show. My name is Christopher Saunders, and with the basketball season slowly approaching, practice begins, I think, on Thursday, if I recall. There's just going to be just a few more days as far as till we start hearing, as the former Newtown head coach, Mr. Tallcouch, would say, when he stops hearing his knees squeak and the sneakers squeak, that's a beautiful thing. Now he's the assistant coach with Coach Bernardi at St. Joe's. But I've got on with me the New Canaan assistant coach with Coach Melzer, who does a great job with the Rams. Michael Tiscia is with me. Mike, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man, happy to be here. I did this a few years ago with you, and it was a blast. And obviously, really appreciate all the stuff that you and so many other guys do for high school athletes and basketball, football, and all the different sports. It's great for them to get coverage and get their names out there for things. So happy to be on.
It's always a pleasure to be able to, I think, in the years that I've been able to broadcast games outside the NVL and talking with guys like you and seeing the support that you have for the New Canaan programs, not just beyond basketball. I see what you do for football. I saw what you did for the girls soccer team, and then seeing them over the weekend, a couple weekends ago, and seeing them win, that was, I mean, I'm sure that night must have been cool. I mean, it must have been rocking in New Canaan, but to see the support that you have for the school is really, really cool. And I like to see that. I do.
Yeah, part of it also is, I teach there. So as a health teacher, health and PE over there, it's one of those things where, we try to build that community within. And I see these kids Monday through Friday, and I get to communicate with them and talk with them and get to really know them on a personal level. And it's great to see their success. And we talk about all the different things that kids are able to do inside of the classroom for sure in New Canaan, with it being as highly thought of as it is throughout the state and whatnot. But obviously the athletic program has been very successful, and this year we've already taken home state championship there, like you said, with girls soccer, who is one of the best teams I watched in terms of just being cohesive as a unit. They got a great group of girls on that team. So, yeah, I try my best to do anything I can to promote the kids there, because I know how hard they work and what it means to them.
Looking at it from where basketball is a couple days away from really beginning, I kind of look at it in two ways. Now the season is starting a little bit earlier because of getting Mohegan Sun. It had to be a week early because there was a confliction between that. But at the same time, like football, like the fall sports, like the spring sports coming up and have been for a while, you guys had the opportunities if you had the players and they were able to work out for a couple hours per week, a couple times, depending on how you structured it. So do you feel like in having that, I know some of your guys are playing football, and I think a lot of New Canaan's hoping they get to another title, and it's looking like the only team that's going to stop New Canaan is New Canaan. I mean, they look unstoppable. But as far as the guys that you had, do you feel like that time kind of erases the short or earlier start to the season? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. It certainly was a nice little thing to have added. Our kids have worked really hard. The kids that are non-football players are really getting after it. And even this fall, really did a really nice job. But I give some of our football guys credit too, because they showed up to different games, not to play in them, but they were, helping coach in certain games, trying to just keep the team together. Because we have three of our senior captains are football players, so it was nice to see that they, were still around, still wanted to be part of everything. But our guys have worked really hard. I've been really impressed watching them. They've gotten after it, and I think they're really excited about this season because, we know how stacked this league is, but our guys are determined, and I'm excited to get the balls out on the court on Thursday.
You speak about how deep the league is, and I kind of compare it to the SEC where you could go 10 and 10 depending on the sport, or you could go like Wilton. I think they were a couple games below 500, but they beat Greenwich. They were losing to New Canaan by a baseball score, but they had five turnovers, so that kind of hurt them. They were in the game against Darien, in the game against Ludlow. Like they were in those games. It's just one of those things that prepares you as far as when you get to the playoffs if you're able to get there. But the point that I'm trying to make is on the basketball side, I saw what Ludlow was able to do against Wilby and the run they made. They lost to Lewis Mills in the semifinal at Naugatuck. Obviously, you guys had a pretty good season. I know Staples, I saw from Joe Morelli from Game Time, they moved up to Division One. Their
Yep.
captain said, kind of like what Farmington did for boys soccer, where the coach talked, and in this case, Goldshore said, "Hey, what do you guys want to do? Let's go to Division One." And I think I love that. I admire that. I like the competitiveness and like wanting to be and face the best. And that's got to be pretty cool for you and Coach Melzer to be like, hey, every game's going to be a dogfight, but we'd love that because we're going to be battle tested.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you look at this league, there's no games you go into that are quote unquote gimmies. They're just not. I remember even a few years ago, West Hill's team when they went 0 and 20, like you would think that that game is an easy W, but they were, a team that fought hard and they were, well coached and figured out different ways to make games challenging. So you have to be prepared in this league night in and night out if you're going to win. We tell our guys that all the time. It takes more than just doing things in practice. It does things off the court. You got to watch film. You got to make sure you're prepped for things, because if you're not, you're going to lose. And there's some really, really good coach teams in this league. I mean, you can go from Richfield, Staples, obviously Wilton. The list goes on and on. So if you're not ready each and every night, you're not going to win. So, but we do all, I think, in the league feel that when it gets time for like the state tournament, we're so battle tested that we can feel confident going up against anyone. I think we felt that way going into Bunnell last year. But they obviously wanted to win on the state championship, and they were a really good team. But I thought we played pretty hard, at least in the first half. Second half got away from us a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this league is every single night it's a dogfight, so you got to be prepared.
Hey, you guys avoided me calling the game because if you guys were able to get there, I had your guys' game because I
There you
called the
go.
Bunnell game against SMSA. So
Okay.
I could have finally been able to pay back my debt to society, mainly Coach Melzer, because then you would have been at Wilby, you would have been in my neck of the woods, and then I could have finally gotten the hoagie for him,
There you go. There you go.
because I've forgotten the bet that I lost.
Well, we'll keep that in mind this year. That'll be one of the goals.
Good. Write that down. And I'm sure
It
Coach Melzer, if he's watching this, watching this too, write it down, dude.
will.
Um, just thinking about it, dude, because the teams that you just mentioned again, to go back to the FCAC, right? I have the opportunity again to vote for the boys as far as the rankings. And every single year since I started, I think it was in 2021, if I recall, maybe a year off. Because I know obviously 2020 was a wonky year. I don't even remember if we
Yep.
voted. But the point is, when we do our top 15, sometimes we do a little bit more in the beginning of the year, depending. A lot of the schools are FCAC. They're, on a good year, the NVL may have a couple. This may be a little bit different for the NVL. But for the FCAC, it's regularly Ridgefield, Staples, sometimes Wilton, if they have a lot of guys coming back with Coach Guriak and their squad, they'll be up there. There's probably a couple other schools I'm missing too, but the point is, it's when you get teams like that regularly in the top 15 every year or in the top 10, that speaks to kind of what you got to face, like you said, Coach.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you look, I would imagine that if you look at a list like that heading into this year, you'll have those same teams. You'll have the Richfields. You'll have Wilton. You're going to have teams like Ward. You're going to have teams like Trumbull. Ward returns a lot of guys. This is their second year with their coach, and they played really well last year, but they got, I think, their whole starting five back. Trumbull obviously is up there. Staples is going to be legit. Richfield and Wilton, like we said, St. Joe's, you never really know. Obviously, they have TJ over there, who's one of the best players in the league. You got teams like Stanford High, who, I know EJ got hurt playing football, and that kind of hurts them, but they're going to be able to play hard, and they got some guys that can go at it too. So, this league from one through basically the entire league is going to be a grind. And the teams that might not be quote unquote the top teams are, teams that also are really well coached. Danbury, who knows what they're going to be this year, but I have the utmost respect for Casey Bach and what he's done. Ludlow's another team where, I talked about it earlier with you. I love John Daly. He's a good friend. I talked with him a lot leading up into their state tournament run too. So it's a grind, like you said, man. And it's one of the things that we love about it is, to your words, it's a challenge, and it's one thing that gets us excited each and every night and each and every week to get ready to go.
I gotta ask you, how do you balance, dude? Like you have a not so much a newborn, but you have somebody new into the family.
Yep.
So, and I love the photos with you and your son watching Packers games, albeit the Packers have beaten the Cowboys, I don't know how many times, and that. Oh, I remember the bet now is because Dallas lost to the Packers last year. Now I remember. Okay. Now I remember. Okay, because I actually thought Dallas was going to win that game. Shame on me. Never again. But the point is, though, being able to balance that. I know you watch college games. I think you're a Tar Heels fan. Am I wrong?
I am.
Yeah,
I
okay.
am.
So you're watching them. I know if UConn's on, you'll watch them too. But the point is, how do you balance the work of being a teacher, a PE teacher, being able to balance being a father, and also being a coach, while also trying to pick up on things when you're watching the college game too, and watching football? How do you balance all that, dude?
Yeah, it's challenging at times. In terms of like getting stuff ready for basketball season, we have a coaches group chat with everyone on our staff, so we're pretty well prepared in terms of what we're going to go into with an idea for practices and for games. If we're going to watch film, we cut up different clips and what we're going to do. So we're pretty well prepared in that spectrum. And, obviously the entire staff works at New Canaan High School. Myself, Danny, Jay DeVito, Mike McAteer, and Terrence Timmy, we're all teachers, so. Um, we're able to communicate and do things in that sense. In terms of being home and balancing all that stuff, it's definitely tough. It's a grind. Basketball season is a major grind. I'm very fortunate for my wife. She's a nurse, so her schedule is a little hectic as well. So I know basketball season's not the easiest for her, but she's always been very supportive. My mother-in-law, my parents, everyone. So we have people that can help us out with the baby. Now that he's a 1-year-old, he's walking all over the place and doing his craziness. But it's all fun for me. I love it. Some days are more stressful than others, but that's kind of part of life, right? You got to be resilient, you got to figure it out. And I love my job, so that's one of the biggest things. And my family's so supportive of everything, and they always come first. That's without question. But it's just another year, and we're getting ready to go.
So when should we expect him to start dribbling with his left and his right hand opposite? When should we
Well,
expect that?
hopefully soon. We have this little mini hoop. It's actually to my side over here that he knows how to like dunk on. Now he's not going to have the height to dunk, but he gets the ball and he puts two hands in and dunks it. So he's getting the gist of it.
Nice. He does better than half the NBA guys.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
even get me started on that. I mean, I was telling, who was I talking to? I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago. I was talking with a coach, and I was saying about Wemby for the Spurs. Dude's 900 feet tall, but they have him shooting threes. I'd be like, dude, you could extend your arm like Michael Jordan from what was it,
Space
Space?
Jam, Space Jam.
Yeah, and do that. I mean, literally. But they have
Yeah,
the kid shooting threes. I'm like, well, I understand if you could shoot threes, that's great, but his weakness is the jumper from the J from the post or from
yep.
the elbow. The guy struggles from that, but they have him shooting threes.
Yeah, I was in terms of the NBA. I think the post position is really kind of a thing of the past at this point. I'm a big Denver Nugget fan, and you watch Jokic, he'll work inside and do things, but he'll also step out and stretch you. So I think that's just kind of the new era of the game, and everyone's trying to be a stretch, and these guys are all 7 feet, but they can shoot it. So I agree with you. It's a little different to watch, and you would imagine like it should be simple enough, but these guys get paid for specific things, and that's what they're going to try to do.
But you know what the thing is, though, and this is why I mention this because it goes to the high school standpoint. Now, guys in the NBA could do most whatever they want because they're in there for a reason, right? You would think. But at the high school level, these kids watch what they do. I hope they watch the college game more, but I feel like the NBA kind of gets some attraction to the kids because of the highlights, social media, and the whole nine. But college is kind of coming into that too. But the point is, for you being a coach, I don't know if it so much affects your kids. I feel like I see it a lot being in the NVL where I've seen some players who can really dominate getting to the cup. But then over the course of a season, I see them slowly kind of drifting away from like they're going backwards, not forward, and thinking that they can chuck up threes like Wemby, right? Or Curry, and they're shooting from the logo. And I'm thinking to myself, your strength is driving to the cup, going from the elbow or from the low post. So why get away from that? And I get Curry could do whatever he wants, but you're not Steph Curry. I mean, you're your own player. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that go with that. I think kids that are watching sports and watching basketball, I think that's great in general because they're learning different things. We have some guys on our basketball team that have, honestly told me like, I don't really even watch basketball. Like, with everything now with social media and kids are on TikTok and Instagram and doing God knows what else. Sometimes they lose the desire to watch sports the way we might have, when we were kids. I loved when I was in high school, that's all I watched. To this day, that's pretty much still all I watch. I try to avoid news and all that other stuff, and I just kind of, I get a real joy out of watching sports. But to your point, when kids are watching it, I think they try to adapt their games in one way or another, and I just think sometimes you got to be realistic with yourself in terms of what it is that you're going to bring to your team, what your team's trying to do, and ultimately the goal is to win. I think there are certain times where people also miss that, and it's more about me than the we. So hopefully, more kids are understanding like how can I expand my game with certain things, but also keeping the main focus that we're trying to win.
What kind of team do you have? Speaking of the we and not me, what kind of team do you have coming back this year?
We have a team that got a lot of experience last year. Going into last season, we really only had one experienced varsity player, and that was Griffin Bramwitt, who graduated. Who he was a senior last year. Everyone else really had very little varsity experience. Fletcher Heron had a little bit. He was another senior last year, but all the underclassmen, the juniors and the sophomores, we played a freshman a little bit last year as well. They got a ton of experience, and I think that's going to bode well for us going into this year because I think what that's going to allow for our guys this year is that the game's not going to feel as fast to them. And when things can slow down for you, it gets a little more comfortable. I know that firsthand when, I was thrown into the starting role as a sophomore at Stanford High. When our starting point guard got hurt, the game just felt like it was moving 1,000 miles a minute. And it was tough. But once you got more experience, you got your feet wet, slowed down, and you could play within your game a little bit. And I think a lot of our guys are going to benefit from that. And we played in some really tough environments. Playing at Bunnell, it's no joke. That team is really well coached. Those kids are athletic, they're strong. But none of our guys backed down. And I thought it was a really good learning experience for us. We played in some really close games against some other really good teams. So I think our guys are going to be pretty well battle tested going into this year. And as long as we can stay together and stay, as a unit, then we should be all right.
How is it too to be, being able to coach next to Danny as long as you have? I mean, you guys, I really feel like make such a good team because it's like the yin and yang. You kind of both kind of bounce ideas off each other. I'm sure there's certain times where maybe you disagree on something and then vice versa, maybe on a particular set or maybe particular defensive scheme. I'm sticking to football terms with the scheme, but you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
But the point is though, to know that regardless of the outcome you both are on the same page. And I don't know the other guys on the staff, but I'm sure the same thing. So that's got to be a pretty, cool nucleus as far as being able to know we're all on the same page. We all want the same thing and we all have one mission. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we actually just had our coaches meeting. Was that 2 nights ago? We do it every year leading into the season, where Danny kind of talks about certain things with expectations, goals, stuff like that. So we're all together in what we're trying to do, but we all have different roles on the staff. Certain guys do certain things well versus others. But I've learned so much coaching under Danny. Obviously, I played for Danny when I was at Stanford High, so there's just little nuances here and there that I picked up with him. But we've always said that one thing that makes a really good team is that if there's just one voice. What that means is that everyone's message is the same, is that, even if you don't agree with something, you can't go against what the head coach is saying. You got to stay together with it. You may disagree and have a conversation with them on the side about certain things, but you have to stay together because the team needs to know that it's all one. And we've done a really good job of that. And again, Danny, I can't say enough good things about him. He's like a big brother to me. He's helped me out throughout my entire life as I've gotten to this point. And I see some things when I'm coaching in JV games and I like say something and I'll look back and be like, was that Danny that just said that or was that me? Like I'm confused. But it's been a pleasure obviously coaching with him and looking forward to getting another year underway.
Well, Mike, best of luck as far as this season with New Canaan for boys basketball. And hopefully, things can go well. Maybe I'll see you guys down the road at some point.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. And again, Chris, thank you and to everyone else that has done so much for these kids. I mean, it's great, and you guys are doing a big service to all of them.
Wrap things up here in the CT Sports Talent Show. Next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. Right by them all. Enjoy the show, everybody, and be well.